This is your standard, let's just say, Toyota Corolla Hakari, the Maori Feasting Stage platform. The word Hakari translates as a feast or gift. As you're about to see, there were more than a few versions depending on where you were in the country. Alternative names for the same structure used to store and present food included kaupapa. In the 19th century books I looked at, kaupapa meant feasting stage. Nowadays it's used to describe a knowledge or a plan for etymological reasons that escape me. Kaumonga is another word that is conversationally all but extinct. Still, regardless of the name, these structures shared the same purpose: present and store food for special occasions. Those could be, say, an important funeral, a tongihonga, celebrate victory in battle, to project power to visitors with the breadth and scale of the food on offer. Feasts were normal in Maori culture, and the type of meat one could munch on was, let's just say, something one would need to get accustomed to, an acquired taste. Moving now to this, the subject in the title. A monster. Middle-earth springs to mind, and take in the surroundings for perspective. The size of those humans on each of the 15 platforms at its pinnacle. Then do some mental arithmetic. Ponder the sheer scale and majesty for 15 seconds before I give you my own schoolboy calculations. I've factored in non-subscribers will take a mite longer than the brighter counterpart viewers who have subscribed already. Stop the video if necessary and search the title of the painting in the front of you if you like. Starts humming to himself. Okay, my best ballpark is at the peak. It's about 125 feet, 40 odd metres give or take. Over 50 years later, New Zealand's first, what would be termed to be a skyscraper at the time, went up. The New Zealand Express building in Christchurch, 112 feet tall. This makes the Bay of Islands Hakari taller or thereabouts. Nor was there just one painting or etching of a giant feasting stage floating about in the early to mid 1800s. This, a mammoth, a conical shaped structure drawn by Samuel Williams from a cruder renditions and recollection by the missionary William Yeats about 1835. More pages from Lord of the Rings. 16 stages / floors. It's a bit more friendly for those of us who are mathematically challenged. Oh shit, that's me. Despite this probably not being a good idea, I'll have another crack. Quibble at my ineptitude in the comments below if you must. An average person at the time was, say, 5'5", and therefore each floor was about 8 foot, looking for some headroom. 16 times 8, where's my calculator? 16 times 8. 128 foot. Like the Bay of Islands platform, probably taller than the tallest piece of man-made architecture in New Zealand at the time, if it was accurate. I'm going to stick my neck out here and suggest these giant platforms were amongst the most significant pieces of architecture constructed by Maori. Full stop. The internal pole in the middle is most intriguing, and check it out for a few secs. How people moved up and down is perplexing to me as well. But how realistic and accurate scale-wise were those two pictures? Well, as it happens, there are other sketches of the Bay of Islands Hakari. This. Be sure to read the text. This will allow us to compare. Now let's put them both side by side, in which you can see it does have design similarities with the first one, minus 9 odd stages, making the main frame the same height, just without the towers. Not on the same wow category, thus not on Peter Jackson's radar. Highly reminiscent of the bamboo scaffolding you would encounter in Hong Kong, at least I did when I was there in the early 80s. There was also written reports from settlers at the time recounting details on a similar or perhaps the same Yates cone design, which came with the ballpark eyewitness measurements, 130 feet tall, in line with the scrap of paper numbers we crunched. A guest at another feast wasn't just impressed with the height of the Hakari they were seated at, but by its length, 2 miles long. All you have heard so far are reports from European settlers. What do Maori, the creators, have to say about giant feasting platforms? I set out to get the answers to those questions. 1. Were they traditional, or did they just appear only after Europeans arrived? 2. Were they really as big as depicted, or was there some poetic license? 3. Are there remains or examples of them still existing? Given its size, the remains of the large trunk supporting the cone-shaped Hakari could well be about today in some other form. Where though? What say I asked the descendants of the people who built the Hakari in the first watercolour? The Ngāpuhi, the local iwi or tribe for overseas viewers who broadly occupy the north of New Zealand and numbers-wise are the largest iwi in New Zealand. Off went the email, to which I received a very polite reply saying they didn't have any historic records of these platforms and I was best to ask a university or museum. Only, by this stage, the project had already been on the go for quite a while. I had already asked the people at Canterbury and Auckland University Maori departments. I'd actually inquired with individuals at the country's preeminent institutions 3 times over the past 3 months without soliciting even an acknowledgement. I'd long given up on Maori academics wanting to help a local history buff and ultimately you, my audience. To my mind, this exercise exposes the inadequacies of oral history, not painting or drawing things down, nor writing them down as well. Put it this way, from a Maori cultural perspective, we have the historic guest list, not the location of the get-together. Information in books on Maori architecture was, to say the least, patchy, a line here and there. And can't end this one with a yes or no, just a maybe. One of my many vices, apart from sardonic wit, which comes to you at no extra cost, I might add, is to dabble on the horses and gamble away my meagre fixed income. If this were a horse, I would put the odds at 15 to 1, an outside chance, a place bet. It's frankly rather sad even a modern replica doesn't exist. What a sight it would be to behold. Have huge tourist potential. Overseas visitors flock to New Zealand to see, or at least they used to, places like Hobbiton. Probably not aware hobbits are a pest in the wild, and spread TB and are a great advert for the widespread use of 1080. Utterly ridiculous, the government limiting the bag to 2. The jury is therefore out on this one when it comes to the mega stages. Please, if you can add knowledge on this compelling subject, point viewers to a reference, not a Google search, and stick them in the comments. I'm sure we'll be all grateful for your input. And if the mega versions also went up elsewhere, please tell us. Should this little number have spun your wheels, why not take a look at the Motunui Panel theft, which spanned continents as well as decades. Add to that the House of Lords, Interpol and the kidnapping for good measure, and you've a bump away to spend the next 15 minutes. Link, as usual, below. If you want to support Kiwis making Kiwi content on YouTube and quirky videos on interesting stuff no one largely covers, please subscribe. It's free. Share the videos on social media. That photo, by the way, was taken in 1932 and features scouts on Brighton Beach, Christchurch, drumming up support for local products. Sometimes I spoil you, I really do. Keep your powder dry, and I will spot you next time. Bye for now.